Do you want to read more books, but you're struggling to make that happen? Do you consider yourself not a reader? Well, today we're going to take a look at some tips and tricks that I found helpful and I think will be helpful to you to improve your reading outcomes. Uh, Welcome to the Talk to Me PDD podcast. I'm your host, PDD. Talk about all things knowledge work, AI, technology, work, life, whatever comes to mind. So today is episode 52, How to Read More. If you like the content, please like and subscribe. Follow the channel and all our different modalities, whether it's a video or audio version of the podcast. Have a great newsletter set up at peterdempseywrites.com. Please check it out and support the work. So yeah, let's get into it. If you know me, this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. Reading's been something that's really been helpful for my own growth, both personally and professionally. Love to see more people take advantage of it. I think it's really an untapped resource for many people in their development journey. So where do we start? A lot of these practices that I'm going to talk about help to build an identity where we can self-identify as a reader. And if we can reinforce that with our habits and practices, that's going to form a virtuous cycle that's going to help us read more because we believe we're a reader. And kind of sounds silly a little bit, but you can sort of trick yourself into believing this identity, which is actually going to translate into better outcomes for that someone who has that identity. And you can apply this in all sorts of things in life, but I think it works very well for reading and building a successful reading practice. And I use this term reading practice intentionally. If you've done yoga, you may have heard of the term a yoga practice. It's something active and something that you own and is individual to you, how you apply it and use it. It's not just reading books, but it's a practice that you own that's important to your life. It's an ongoing activity. It's integrated into a bit of who you are. So that's why I like to use that terminology about reading and trying to build further that identity as a reader. For me, it's been helpful in a lot of career growth, growth changes and development. When I was getting into people management, I did a lot of reading in that area, in leadership practice, to make sure that it was an area that I wanted to transition into, and just to better inform myself and prepare myself for it. Done a lot of reading in the productivity space in terms of deep work and how to organize my day and have more impact and not get distracted by sort of shallow work and activities like that. Lately reading a lot on AI, and that's something where people might say, oh, the field is moving so fast. Why are you reading books on that? It's going to be outdated by the time you read it. That's generally not what I found. It also gives you a lot of sort of the history, how we got here, and really some deeper thinking into it. So just a couple examples where I found it really helpful for my own professional development. But really, you can read anything. It doesn't necessarily have to be applicable to a specific professional development goal. And with all types of reading, you're going to be developing a general skill set that's going to apply in your professional life. So things like critical thinking, empathy, thinking about how to innovate by applying what you've learned across different domains, where that's an area that through reading books is really easy to get exposure to. It's a little bit harder in the professional space to kind of go around to all different things. So these are skill sets that are going to be durable. They're going to last. And regardless of how the world of work and technology changes, we're going to need these skill sets, probably even more so than before. Especially the critical thinking aspect, being able to evaluate what's real in terms of content and what's not, when you can trust output, when you need to investigate further. The empathy side, having that human connection, whether it's as a leader or just in the work that you do, as we become increasingly digitized in how we work and live. I think there's going to be a real appetite for that and a skill set that may seem straightforward, but is something you have to maintain and develop. And reading's been something that's been shown through studies to help develop empathy. So again, those skills you're going to get for free, kind of regardless of what area you're reading in, and it'll definitely help you in work and in life. I think it's also just a great opportunity to unplug from the digital world for a little while, to escape from the distractions that can pop up, the constant notifications, checking devices. Um, I'm a big fan of reading physical paper books because you're not going to get any pop-ups in your book. You're going to be away from some digital distraction, or you have the opportunity to be. You can certainly use digital devices if you like. I would recommend something that was more of a dedicated reader, like an e-ink type thing, where it's really just a single purpose device for that, and you're not going to get sucked into other things. So it's just a nice opportunity to reset and to take a break from that constant stimulation and distraction. So I'm going to go through three different categories of kind of various levels of advancement that you can apply. I think I really apply all of these things, and probably the beginner ones are what make the biggest impact for me. And so it's not like you have to get to a super advanced level to be reading a lot, but we'll go through, what I would call beginner techniques, some intermediate techniques, and advanced techniques. And, I'm not the master reader here, so certainly things beyond what I would consider advanced if you're an expert reader, or, reading hundreds of books a month or that sort of thing. But then you're probably not watching this video. So starting with some advice for beginners. So read books that you enjoy. It's going to be a lot easier, especially as you're trying to build this skill set and habit and practice to be reading things that you like. It should be a good experience. You shouldn't dread having to read, even if it's challenging, right? The actual reading part of it, the material should be something that you like. And along those lines, you probably want to pick something that is accessible to the level that you're at. So a combination of material and or topic that you find interesting, and also a level of writing, whether it's the length or the complexity that's appropriate to where you're at. So it's going to be, you're not going to struggle with, really complex prose or things like that if that's not an area that is as much of a habit for you. So start with those two things. Now, the way that I recommend starting, and this is stolen from Cal Newport, and I'm sure other people as well, is more of a interval reading approach. So you're going to try and read for 10 minutes a day. That's it. Doesn't matter how much you read. Set a timer. Do it for that. And really, like many things, it's the saying that consistency over intensity. So your goal should really be to be consistent with this, to try and do it every day, and to try and get those 10 minutes in. If you do more, great, but it's more important that you do it consistently than you read a lot during any given session or day. Now, depending on your schedule, you can do this at any point throughout the day. I think when you're trying to form a new habit, if you can be consistent and train your mind to expect that you're going to be doing something at a particular time, that can be helpful. So that's not always possible, but if you can, I would say try and pick the same time of day every day that you're going to do your reading. I think either kind of first thing in the day or at the end of the day are good times to kind of bookend the day, when most people can find some time for themselves. And 10 minutes is not a huge amount. It's not like you have to get up at 4:30 a.m. to do a 2-hour SEAL team workout. This is 10 minutes of reading. So if you have to get up 10 minutes earlier, it's a little bit of harder, but not as much as some kind of self-help advice that's out there. I think you want to make, as much as you want the reading to be enjoyable, you want the whole routine to be as enjoyable as possible. So I kind of tend to bookend my days with these most days. And in the morning, my reading is what I try to be the first thing that I do. I read before I look at any devices or do anything. So it's just a nice time to give my mind and my body a little bit of time to wake up before throwing myself right into the day. Have some coffee, get cozy on the couch, cuddle with the dog. So it's a lot of things that are enjoyable to me, kind of all put together, and then just gets to be a nice routine. At the end of the day, winding down, you know, 10 minutes on the couch or in bed. Some people say, oh, you shouldn't read in bed. I'm not one of those people. I think it's great if you fall asleep while you're reading. Well, better than falling asleep watching TV. So there you go. Those are kind of the two ones that I like. And that, to be honest, that really is the majority of the reading that I do, having that habit at either end. So, start with one of those, try and do it consistently, or whatever time of day it is for you. I would say do it for at least a month, trying to do almost every day. And then once that becomes a little bit more of a routine, if you start feeling a little bit more comfortable, if you want, then you can add in the second one, and then try and do those two 10-minute sessions a day. I think you'll really be surprised at how much progress you'll make just with two 10-minute sessions a day. And as you're doing it more, you're going to your reading skill is going to develop. You're going to get through more content in that 10 minutes. And of course you can do more. And as you get more comfortable, you may want to do that. Sometimes it's kind, you can kind of trick yourself to do more if you get through times like, okay, well, I'm just going to read one more page till I finish this chapter, or another page like that. And then you can get more done. So yeah, that's kind of the beginning one. If that's all you do, I think you can be very successful, especially if you're coming from a place where you feel like you're not a reader, or you're really struggling to make any progress. So now getting into what I would consider a little bit more of some intermediate techniques is to have a book wherever you go. So you always have the opportunity to read. I mean, you see people on their phones all the time, waiting in line, waiting for an appointment, just if you're sitting down taking a break outside. So if you have a book with you, that's an alternative. You can pick that up. If you don't have it, you're not going to do it. I find that even sort of within my house, if I have books in different places, then I never have to worry about kind of, if I sit down someplace for a couple minutes, it's right there. I can pick it up as opposed to going to my phone or some other distraction. So I think that's really good, and that'll just help you do a little bit more. It's not like you're necessarily going to have super long reading session with all of these, but just a couple pages here and there, it does add up. That sort of leads into the second one that I would put under the intermediate category, is reading multiple books at once. So just like you might watch multiple streaming series at the, more or less the same time, not literally the same time, but, kind of concurrently, do the same with books. So once you're comfortable with those kind of beginner consistent habits, then you can start doing multiple books. That allows you to have them in different places. Maybe you take one that's a little bit more challenging, one that's a little bit easier. So you get some variation. It's always nice to feel like you're making progress. So you might want some books that you can kind of get through and complete. And then maybe you have a longer one that you're working on that stretches out while you're finishing other books, so you can keep that motivation. So that's been really helpful. I think I'm generally reading between 2 and 4 at a time. And especially for some of the longer, more challenging books that I've read, it's been helpful to keep that motivation, or be able to switch to something a little bit lighter and not just force myself to grind through. All right, now getting a little bit into the more advanced techniques, I would say this is when, if you want to push yourself to read for longer stretches, and really just kind of churn through some material, I find this works well when I'm traveling, like if I have a long flight, and just setting aside, okay, I'm going to read for 2 hours on this stretch. If you can do that, or just see how much progress you can make. And depending on where you are and what you're comfortable with, maybe do an hour, then watch a show, then do another hour, that sort of thing. So you can push yourself to get into longer stretches there. If you're on vacation, you're at the beach or the pool or things like that, have a book with you, then you can make some progress there. So that's kind of it. That's pretty much what I do. Feel like I've been, able to get through quite a bit, probably a little bit more than average. And I think these are all pretty accessible techniques. They don't involve a massive amount of time in a given day. It's more about being consistent with it than, locking yourself in the library for a weekend and reading all weekend. Now, kind of a little bit before I wrap up, there is, some different thoughts around setting goals for reading. Some people don't like it, some people do. I think I like it in general, but it's all a matter of setting reasonable goals. For me, it's one that is achievable, but is going to push me to do more than I would just do on my own. And so you can set those at all levels. Let's say you're starting out with that 10-minute interval reading. You can say, okay, well, one day a week I'm going to read for 20 minutes. So that's more than you would have done otherwise, but is achievable. There are trade-offs, and you do only have so much time and sort of mental energy. So there is some prioritization if you're going to push for goals that have a bigger commitment. I did, set a goal and read 60 books in a year. So that was definitely had to prioritize that over some other things. And then I don't do that now because I'm prioritizing some other things. So it's just recognizing that there are trade-offs there. I like the idea of, and this was another Cal Newportism, of investing social capital if you're going to set some of these goals, or if you're really trying to push yourself. So when I was doing a longer reading goal, I made that public. I kind of put out what I was reading every month and track that. Just as a way to feel like I was accountable to it. Obviously, nobody's going to come and yell at me, I don't think, if I didn't complete my goal. But I did find it helpful to, feel like I was invested by telling people that I was going to achieve this goal. So that's about it. I think these techniques can really help anyone. It's not about necessarily how much you get through, but making it a habit and being consistent. And then I think you'll see a lot of the benefits from that. And then once you sort of get that habit going, you build that identity, it really becomes a lot easier from there to continue scaling up if you want to. So there you go. Good luck in your reading journey. I wish you the best building your reading practice. If you like the content, please let me know. Like and subscribe, follow the channel, drop a comment in. And until next time, I'm PDD, and thanks for your time.